Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. So here's my question today. Are you a yo-yo dieter? You know, you lose weight, you gain it back, you lose it again, and the cycle continues. Well, many fitness and nutrition professionals agree that it can slow down your metabolism and make it harder to lose weight. And now studies are showing that it could also be a serious health risk. Now, the dangers of yo-yo dieting have received a lot of attention in the media explosion around the recently published study by the Obesity research journal revealing how many of the incredible success stories from contestants of The Biggest Loser reality show have completely unraveled. The investigators at the National Institutes of Health have tracked 14 contestants from The Biggest Loser over 6 years, and out of the 14, 13 of them have regained much or all of the weight that they worked so hard to lose. So is it really possible to lose weight and to maintain that weight loss long term? You know, even if you've already tried and maybe even you've seen success with multiple diets and weight loss systems, but ultimately failed. Well, my guest today says not only is it possible, but it can be done without living in a gym or depriving yourself of the foods that you thought you would have to live without. Renée Jones is a weight loss counselor and expert at not only getting the weight off, but more importantly, maintaining it over the long haul, something that so many people struggle with. Renée has faced those same struggles herself. After 40 years of yo-yo dieting, she finally realized that losing weight and keeping it off had less to do with the diet plan and everything to do with emotional triggers. That stuff in your head that leads to eating comfort food. That's when she figured out that if she faced her stuff, she no longer had to stuff her face. Well, now she's helping the masses conquer this problem by identifying these triggers and retraining their mindset to find ways rather than food to meet those emotional needs. She's the best-selling author of What's Really Eating You, Overcome the Triggers of Comfort Eating, and her unique approach is a win-win for anyone who is seeking to lose weight and keep it off. So welcome to Influencers Radio, Renée Jones.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad to have you on the show because you really do bring a unique perspective to this that I think a lot of people need to hear. You know, it seems like shows like the Biggest Loser, they put such an overwhelming emphasis on exercise and what you can eat, what you can't eat, how much you can eat, when you can eat. It seems that there's no shortage of weight loss systems that claim to be the way to lose weight. And so many of them, seem to be focused on exactly that. Why are people so drawn to this type of rigid, oversimplified diet?
Well, that's the easy part. Because they say, I'll give you a diet. If you'll just follow it, you will lose weight. And that is probably true. However, it's the if you will just follow it that is the hard part, because we're human. We have emotions. Things happen. We get stressed. This is what we've always done when we get stressed or we get upset. We reach for something because, from birth, if you're upset about something, someone puts something in your mouth, whether it is the breast or a bottle or a pacifier. And we learned that if you're upset, put something in your mouth, you will feel better. And unfortunately, we shifted from the pacifier and the bottle to a donut. And we just keep putting something in our mouths to make us feel better. But it's that moment when you're on a diet, maybe you've even taken some appetite suppressants, so you're not actually hungry, and you still end up standing in the pantry or in front of the refrigerator looking longingly, thinking something in there will make me feel better. Because it's not so much the diet, it's that I need something to help me feel better. What in this refrigerator will do it, and I don't care about my diet anymore. That's the point where I can help them.
In your book, What's Really Eating You, rather than laying out a specific diet plan, you focus on the underlying psychology of how we think about food and then the real reasons behind our choices of when we eat and what we eat and how we eat. And you call these triggers for comfort eating. How strong are these triggers, and how can we recognize when this is really the core of our problem rather than which diet we choose?
Yeah, I mean, a trigger can be whatever trips you up over and over again. Do you get really stressed about your work stuff? Is your boss pushing you for something, and the only way you can get a little bit of comfort in that moment is to take some food? Or maybe you've had a fight with your spouse or with your child or your best friend, and the only way you can comfort yourself in that moment, because you can't fix the situation right now, is let me just have some food that'll give me a momentary hit of comfort and a little bit of stress relief, and I will feel better. And most of the time, we do. And that's part of the problem, because when we put something in our mouths, we tend to feel better. And then the wraparound guilt comes around and bites us, because we think, why did I do that? I'm on a diet. I'm supposed to be paying attention to this. And then we feel bad, and then we want to put something in our mouths to make us feel better. It's usually something salty or something sweet or something that we've had. I mean, if you think about it, when we're children, maybe we had a bad day in school. You come home and mom says, I'll bake you some cookies, or let me take you out for ice cream, or we're going for pizza, and it makes us feel better. So we have these memories attached to certain foods. If it's the holidays or going to a ball game or some summer event, there are certain foods that we associate with that. And it's actually a memory encased in chocolate, or memory encased in pastry, or something savory, or something creamy like ice cream. It's the memory we're looking for rather than the actual food.
So you're saying that oftentimes when we think about food, for example, a pizza, it doesn't really equal a pizza, that a pizza might equal that memory of some great time, or could represent something that maybe made a bad feeling go away?
Yes, because food is very emotional. It is the center of our family life very often. If for holidays, we have a meal. For birthdays, we go out for a meal. It is that family construct that we use. It's the one time in the day, hopefully, that your family is all in the same place at the same time. So it says so many things to us. It says family. It says connection. It says comfort. It says love. And when we can't get it in other situations, that's when we go for some food memory. I have a lot of women in my practice, but I also have a few men. And almost without fail, I will say they will talk about wanting ice cream after dinner, maybe while they're watching TV. And I say, okay, when you were young, when you were being rewarded for a job well done, whatever that happened to be, did your mom and dad take you out for ice cream? And they always say yes, because they are trying to reward themselves for that day's work with some ice cream. It's the same thing, and it's the emotional push rather than just the food itself. It's the emotional connection of that food.
Even though your focus is on helping people recognize and overcome food triggers and comfort eating, you don't restrict your clients to any specific diet. How many people come to you and say, all right, just tell me what I should be eating and when I should be eating it, and I'll follow it?
Every one of them. Yeah, early on, I ask them what diets they've tried. And they've all tried numbers of them. And I'll say, okay, which one worked for you the best? And then I say, then go do that, because they already kind of know what works for them. I know what works for me. And if you just do what works for you, that's fine. All diets work for somebody. So find the one that keeps you most satiated and happiest, and go do that. And then on the side, we'll work on the things that are derailing you or issues or how to get what you need. We'll work on that. You figure out a diet and go do that.
The term food addiction is often associated with, this type of compulsive eating. And you actually have a master's degree in marriage and family counseling and have helped people with other addictions like smoking, drinking, and drugs. Do you find food addiction can be tougher to conquer because unlike smoking or drinking, which we don't need to sustain life, that we can't just quit food completely?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you do. You stop buying alcohol or you stop buying cigarettes. You don't have it around. But you do have to eat. There's no way you cannot do that. So some people will stop buying the trigger food, or they'll put it, out of sight, out of mind. They'll put the foods that are bothersome to them in like an opaque container. Because if you can't see it, you're not as likely to have it. But yes, addiction is very strong, particularly with food. You sit down for a meal and you have that trigger food and you can't stop. A lot of people have this with nuts or popcorn or chips. They just can't stop until it's all gone.
So we can control whether or not we buy our trigger foods ourselves, but we can't control whether or not the rest of the world buys those trigger foods. So with holidays, summers, social events, that present so many opportunities to fall off the wagon. What's the best way to enjoy these occasions without feeling like we should avoid them altogether?
Gatherings of friends and family, or even the office kitchen, always presents a special kind of terror. Because there are going to be foods there that you're going to want. There are going to be foods there that will set you off if you're not careful. But if you go in with a plan, like around holidays, what I typically tell my clients is maybe only have 75% of what you might normally have. If you're going to, because it's a holiday, it's a special event. You want to enjoy it. It's that connection with food. But if you can moderate the amount you take, I mean, I never suggest skip the mashed potatoes or whatever the foods are that you love that say holiday to you. But have a small portion. Plan ahead. Choose what you're going to have. And if you can't control what you eat, recognize it's just one day or it's just one event. If you're going to eat it, sit down, use a knife and fork and a plate, and then enjoy every bite. Because if you are going to make yourself feel guilty later, you better enjoy the food that you're taking in. And it's okay. It's one day.
Your book takes a very realistic and non-judgmental approach to the fact that we aren't perfect, and there'll be occasions that we get off track and dive into those trigger foods. The problem seems to be that, a lot of people, they just don't fall off the diet a little bit. We tell ourselves that story, well, I blew it big today, I might as well just, binge. And we know that's not logical. So how can we get back on track before it gets out of hand?
Well, I think of it kind of like when I'm driving. I get lost a lot because I'm watching the road in front of me instead of the signs that I'm supposed to be looking for. And when I find myself, 3 miles off track, I think, oh, gee, you find a place to turn around, you go back to where you got lost, and you start again. So when you get off track, instead of gorging for the rest of the day, just get back on track at the next meal. Save yourself a lot of extra calories by not continuing to binge. Just start again. It's okay. You forgot what you were doing for a minute. It's okay. Welcome back. You're back on track now. Let's go down this way. It's perfectly okay if you want to choose to do that, to continue to gorge all day and feel sick and all that. If that's what you want to do, fair enough. But know that there are going to be consequences for that. And it's going to take a little longer for you to get back to where you were. If you've completely blown your diet, it's going to take a little longer for you to get back, and you've got that time, and it's up to you. But that's the thing, is it's always up to you. There's nobody watching. And even if you have a coach like me or someone else watching you and holding you accountable and all that, it's still your choice. You get to choose what you want to do, and you'll get the results that you've invested in.
Chapter 1 of your book tells the story of your first diet at 10 years old. Would you mind going back to how this all evolved and turned into a 40-year struggle with yo-yo dieting before you realized and dealt with the emotional triggers that led to comfort eating?
Well, I was 10, and I suddenly realized that I was hefty, or maybe my mother realized I was gaining too much weight, and we needed to make some adjustments. So I was, okay, let's do this diet thing, get it over with, and get on with life. And, you know, there were all those skinny little friends of mine who had their Twinkies and cupcakes and pizza and all the rest of it. And I opened my lunchbox this day. And, you know, it was the 70s. We didn't really seem to think about refrigeration for lunches. I don't even remember there being a cold pack in there. So I opened my lunchbox, and there is this piece of fish. And the smell wafted up to me to begin with. It was like, oh, wow, okay. And then there was some lettuce, icebergs, because we didn't have baby lettuces at our local grocery store in those days, or at least that I knew of. So it was just sort of a colorless, tasteless meal. And I thought, how long will this go on? Because this is disgusting. But, you know, I worked on my diet for a while, and I lost maybe 5-10 pounds, probably need to lose 20. And then I fell off the wagon at some point, and it just perpetuated itself. I don't recall not being on a diet throughout my teenage years, throughout my 20s, 30s, 40s. I was always trying to lose some weight. I'd lose 20 and I'd gain 30. I'd lose 5 and gain 5. I'd, you know, up and down, up and down, up and down, down until I finally broke that blinking yo-yo.
That reminds me of the old saying. I'll paraphrase. It's easy to lose weight. I've done it many times. So, what is it that breaks the yo-yo?
Well, I think it's figuring out what is driving you to eat. What is it that is making you break your diet or go off plan over and over and over again? And once you kind of figure out what's driving the behavior, then you have an opportunity to make the changes to fix that. And I spent a long time talking with a colleague and trying to figure out what was driving my behavior. And we slowly unwound it so that, you know, now I see peanut butter, which was my addictive food, and I think, do I want to start that again? Or can I only have a small amount? And as long as I can have a small portion and stay with it, then I can have peanut butter in the house. But if I start eating too much of it, then I have to stop buying it.
There's a chapter in your book called My Year Without Peanut Butter. And this is such a great example, which really puts the emotional impact behind these trigger foods into context. Can you share some of that story?
Oh, I expected emotion from it. I had 2 experiences with peanut butter that were polar opposites, really. Both my mother and my grandmother loved peanut butter. And after my mother died, I just ate lots of peanut butter because it made me feel connected to her. And then my grandmother died, and I thought, okay, do I want to do this again? And I thought, no, it is not my grandmother or my mother's love. It's not them being here with me. They're not in that peanut butter jar. So how do I get what I need instead of trying to stuff down my feelings and following it with the peanut butter chaser? So if we can figure out, okay, what is it that you associate with that particular food? What does it say to you? What is it that you need? In fact, I have a 4-step process that I call hang out with your feelings. And the first is when you're about to take on some food that is your trigger or any food you can't quite control, stop and ask yourself, am I hungry? And if you're not hungry, go do something else, right? Figure out what is the attraction to that food. If that attraction is there, then what is it that you need from that food? And then go arrange for what you need.
So in this case, peanut butter was just replacing those experiences and feelings from your past. And now the trick is to just replace the peanut butter.
The food, the peanut butter, whatever it happens to be for you, is never going to fill that space in your heart. Ever. So if you can figure out what will fill that need, do you need to go get a hug from somebody? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to play with a dog? Do you need to de-stress for 5 minutes? What is it that you actually need that you're trying to replace with food? And if you figure that out, then it gives you a much stronger position to handle your emotions and the foods that are around you.
You call gluttony the culture-approved sin. What do you mean by that?
Well, there is the whole fat shaming thing at the moment, that particularly for young girls and the body image issues. But I think, I recall growing up, I grew up in a ranching family, and, we'd come in for a meal and it would be all over the table. In fact, my grandfather would say to my grandmother, there's a space here, I can see the tablecloth. We need to put something there. And the idea was, if you can't get round that meal, you can get round that, can't you? Yeah, no, there's only so much space in the stomach. Oh, you can do it, eat. And, a lot of grandmothers of whatever cultural extraction will say, I cooked this for you. You need to enjoy it. This is the way I show my love for you. And so I guess there was a time when being healthily plump was okay. If you think about Marilyn Monroe, she was probably a size 12 or 14, and everyone thought she was the perfect size. And it wasn't until the 70s when the models started getting really, really thin that we began to say, maybe being this heavy is not the thing. But our culture for a long time has suggested that we need to look unhealthily thin. I mean, you've got a size 0 running around. That's not healthy. Seeing your clavicle is not a good idea. But that's what we esteem at the moment, is someone who's thin enough. Now we're kind of shifting toward, okay, you need to have some muscle. But if you are going into McDonald's, they always say, do you want to supersize that? And there's always more food, the all-you-can-eat buffets, for heaven's sake. But we approve of it, and we do encourage it. And I think we always have. It's just that our sizes have gotten much larger over the last 30 years.
One of the most common New Year resolutions is losing weight. And whether it's a new weight loss program, you start in January 1st or next Monday, these resolutions always seem to be preceded by that one last binge. What are your views on the benefits or dangers or pitfalls of resolution? And is there a better way to look at kicking off a weight loss program?
Well, resolutions are great, but if you're not resolving the issue that drives it, you're never going to keep it. So what I often tell people is, okay, set a goal. Think about it. What do you want to work at? When you go out 3 or 4 days and you have broken your resolution, don't just give it up. Go back to your goal, reset yourself, and keep working at it. Because the only way you will ever conquer whatever it is you're trying to either establish or deconstruct in your life, if you're going to give up after the first fall, you're never going to get there. It's also important to set up habits and rituals that support your intention and goals. don't go out on New Year's Eve if you're going to do a New Year's resolution or the eve before your next diet and buy a bunch of Twinkies. That's not going to help you unless you're on the Twinkie diet, which is a whole different thing. But figure out what you actually need to help you. You don't actually have to keep your trigger foods in the house. Your local grocery is probably open 24 hours. If you just absolutely have it in a hurry, your grocery store is not that far away, and they'll keep it fresh for you. They even call it a store. So if you absolutely need it, go get it, sit down, enjoy it, focus on that. Because if you're just going to swallow it whole, you may as well be eating celery. Just take your time with it and enjoy it, and then get right back on your path to the next meal.
It seems that traditional diets are perceived as a finite period of time in which you deprive yourself of certain foods you love, and you're either on the diet or you're off the diet, right? There is no in between. But you say it shouldn't have to be this way. Why not?
Diets are training you in what you can eat that will help you maintain your weight. When you get to the end of your diet, when you've lost the weight you wanted to lose, that doesn't mean suddenly go out and buy all the foods that you haven't had for these last few months. When you get to your goal weight, we have to incorporate some of the things that we've learned so that you can maintain your weight. It doesn't mean you ever get that banana split again. That means you plan for your banana split. You find a way to incorporate the foods that you love into your nutrition plan for life. Because if you don't do that, you'll never be able to maintain the weight loss. And it gives you the joy of anticipation. When you think about anything, your birthday, a wedding, your anniversary, Christmas, a special game you're going to, an event of some sort. The most fun of it is the anticipation and the planning for. So while I wouldn't suggest spending weeks planning for a chocolate shake as such, there is great merit in saying, no, I'm going to save that chocolate shake for this particular day, and I'm going to enjoy every sip of it, and it's going to be great. That gives you control over, okay, I'm not going to just give in to this craving right now. I'm going to plan for it so that I can enjoy it significantly.
So whether a person is cutting out carbs or eating more carbs or eating fruit, eating no fruit, going completely vegan, the struggles, the triggers are going to be there. So are you able to apply these methods regardless of what type of diet someone chooses?
Oh, absolutely. I have this one client who is diabetic, and she doesn't like vegetables, unfortunately. I thought, wow, how do you get to, any age and not actually eat too many vegetables? So I asked her what it was about them that she doesn't like. She said, well, it's not that I don't like all vegetables. There are just some vegetables that I don't care for, and I don't necessarily like them cooked. I said, so there's some vegetables, if they're not cooked, that you would like them. And that began her to think about the vegetables that she might like. And she started on a kind of a discovery of, okay, how do I like this one, or do I not like it at all? And over time, she has lost enough weight that her diabetes is under control without any medication.
Wow, that is just remarkable. And what a huge impact that has on someone's lives, and not just their lives, but also the lives of their friends and family and the people around them. It really is incredible. I'm sure you also have the people that are just looking for, maybe they got that class reunion coming up, or they have, some event that they are thinking, I want to just lose some weight quickly. What do you have to say to folks like that?
Anytime time you're looking at a reunion, looking at seeing people who you haven't seen in a long time, and you've gained a little weight just like everybody else, it's going to be a little unnerving, and people often want to then to lose a little bit. Or maybe we're coming up on summer and we've got the bikini body person who wants to have that bikini body by summer. It may or may not happen for you, but if you will focus on the diet, whatever it is that works for you, you can get a lot closer than you are now. And once you get there, it's important to take the lessons you've learned from that particular diet and keep using that lesson. What food has kept you satiated? What foods have helped you slim down and you've enjoyed eating them? Learn those things and you can keep your body the way you want it. But it takes some time to learn those things and to then manage your emotions around it so that you don't feel deprived.
The final chapter in your book is titled A Word from the Chaplain. And it's really interesting because besides counseling people with the same struggles that you went through and losing weight and maintaining that weight loss, you're also an ordained minister. And you've helped people with marriage, family counseling as well. Can you give us a little bit of background into that, and what role that plays in your practice today?
Well, I guess one of the things that I recognize when I have, particularly a lady who's sat on my sofa or on the other side of Skype or FaceTime, is that there is a chronic lack of self-value, self-esteem. Women in particular have, it's epidemic. We don't see our value. So we put our value in things like our size or our weight. And somehow that has become so ingrained in our psyche. But it's not true. Everyone has value. It may be different to someone else's. But rather than looking for the next great diet, I want to help people look for healing, heal their hearts. It is such a wonderful gift to give someone to help them heal their heart just a little. Our stuff's not going to go away on its own. We have to kind of untangle it. And when we finally face our stuff, it saves a whole lot of calories. So you get the side benefit of losing weight.
Well, fantastic. I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing this information. It really has been tremendous, and it's going to help a lot of people. So, again, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jack.
All right, folks, there you have it. You can get What's Really Eating You in both Kindle and paperback editions at Amazon.com. It's also available through other major online and offline book retailers like Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. We'll have the links right there on the show post. Until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.